Bruce Lee stopped mid-interview, leaned toward Johnny Carson, and without warning touched him. The entire studio held its breath. It was February 1971. The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. Studio 6B in Burbank, California. Another Wednesday night. Another celebrity interview. Johnny was at the peak of his powers, 17 million viewers tuning in every night, the undisputed king of late-night television. His guest was Bruce Lee, the martial arts instructor who was making waves in Hollywood. Not yet the global icon he would become, but already magnetic, already different from anyone else who sat in that guest chair. The interview had been going smoothly. Johnny had done his monologue, jokes about Nixon, about California traffic, about the weather. The audience had laughed in all the right places. Doc Severinsen and the band had played the bumper music perfectly. Everything was routine. Everything was exactly what America expected at 11:30 p.m. Bruce sat in the guest chair, relaxed but alert in his signature all-black outfit. Johnny was asking him about martial arts, about the difference between kung fu and karate, the kind of safe questions that filled time and entertained without challenging anyone. And then Bruce stopped answering. His eyes, those famously intense eyes, locked onto Johnny's face with sudden, complete focus. Not the polite focus of someone listening to a question. Something else. Something deeper. Johnny noticed the shift immediately. He was in the middle of asking about Bruce's training regimen when he saw Bruce's expression change. "Bruce? You okay?" Bruce didn't respond. He was staring at Johnny's left eye. Then his neck. Then back to his eye. The audience stirred uncomfortably. This wasn't part of the interview rhythm. Something was wrong. Carson stopped mid-sentence. The entire studio froze. Bruce Lee leaned forward in his chair. Not the casual lean of someone getting comfortable. This was purposeful. Urgent. His right hand came up, fingers extended, and he reached across the space between the guest chair and Johnny's desk. Ed McMahon shifted in his seat, uncertain whether to intervene. The cameras kept rolling, operators unsure what they were capturing. In the control room, director Bobby Quinn leaned toward his monitors, one hand on his headset. Bruce's fingers touched the side of Johnny Carson's neck. Gentle. Precise. Just below his left ear. Johnny went completely still. "Bruce, what are you?" "Don't move," Bruce said quietly, his voice carrying that distinctive intensity everyone who knew him recognized. "Stay very still." The audience was silent now. 300 people watching something they didn't understand but instinctively knew was important. Bruce's fingers pressed gently against Johnny's neck, moved slightly, pressed again. His eyes never left Johnny's face. He was reading something in Johnny's body that no one else could see. "How long have you had the headaches?" Bruce asked. Johnny blinked. "What?" "The headaches. Behind your left eye." "How long?" The audience could hear Johnny's breathing through his microphone. Could see the moment when surprise shifted to something else. Recognition, maybe? Or fear. How did you know about the headaches?" "Your left eye," Bruce said, his fingers still on Johnny's neck. "It's carrying tension differently than your right. And this area," he pressed gently below Johnny's ear, "is holding heat. Your body is fighting something." Johnny tried to laugh it off. That reflexive Carson defense mechanism, humor as armor. "Well, I do have a television show to run 5 nights a week." "This isn't stress," Bruce interrupted, his voice calm but firm. "This is something else." "When did they start?" The studio was so quiet you could hear the hum of the stage lights. Johnny looked at Bruce. At those intense eyes that seemed to see through everything. And for reasons he would never fully understand, Johnny Carson, the man who never showed vulnerability, who kept everything locked down tight, told the truth. 3 months ago. Maybe 4. They come and go. Mostly behind my left eye, like you said. Sometimes they're so bad I can barely see. Have you seen a doctor? I don't have time for doctors. You need to make time. Bruce said. His hand moved from Johnny's neck to his shoulder, not a diagnostic touch anymore, but something gentler. A gesture of concern between two humans. What I'm feeling, this isn't normal tension. This is your body trying to tell you something important. To understand what happened next, you need to understand what Bruce Lee saw that night. Bruce Lee wasn't just a martial artist. He was a student of the human body in ways most people couldn't comprehend. He'd spent 20 years studying not just how to fight, but how bodies work, energy flow, muscle tension, the way illness manifests in posture and movement before it manifests in symptoms. He could read a person's body the way Johnny could read a studio audience. Instantly. Completely. When he'd sat down for the interview, he noticed something immediately. Johnny Carson's left eye had a slight squint, barely perceptible, that came and went. His neck held tension on the left side that the right side didn't match. And when Johnny laughed, that famous Carson laugh, there was a micro-expression of pain that flashed across his face for maybe a tenth of a second. Bruce had seen that combination before. In Hong Kong. In a martial arts instructor who had ignored similar symptoms for 6 months. That instructor had died 3 weeks after Bruce finally convinced him to see a doctor. Brain aneurysm. Could have been treated if caught earlier. But the man had been too proud, too busy, too convinced he was fine. Bruce Lee had watched that man die and promised himself he would never ignore those signs again. Not in anyone. So when he recognized them in Johnny Carson, in front of 17 million viewers, protocol be damned, he acted. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead. The control room was chaos. Bobby Quinn was screaming into his headset. Do we cut? Do we go to commercial? What the hell is happening? Producer Fred de Cordova stood behind Bobby, watching the monitors. Keep rolling, Fred said quietly. Something real is happening. On stage, Johnny was staring at Bruce with an expression the audience had never seen before. Not the smooth host face. Not the comedian's mask. Just Johnny Carson, 45 years old, scared and trying not to show it. Bruce, I appreciate your concern, but I had a teacher, Bruce said, cutting him off gently. In Hong Kong. Master Chin. He had symptoms like yours. Headaches. Left eye pain. Neck tension. He ignored them because he was too busy, too proud. He died 3 weeks after I convinced him to finally see a doctor. The audience gasped. Ed McMahon's hand went to his mouth. Brain aneurysm. Bruce continued. Could have been treated. Could have been caught early. But he waited too long. Johnny's face had gone pale. You think I have a brain aneurysm? I think you need to see a doctor tomorrow morning. Not next week. Not when it's convenient. Tomorrow. Bruce's hand was still on Johnny's shoulder. What I'm feeling in your neck, the heat, the tension, the way your left side is compensating, these are signs your body is fighting something. And when your body fights this hard, you need to listen. The studio was silent. Doc Severinsen had lowered his trumpet. The band members were watching like everyone else, witnessing something that transcended entertainment. Johnny looked out at his audience. 300 faces staring back at him with concern and fear. He looked at Ed, who nodded slowly, tears in his eyes. He looked back at Bruce. You really think it's serious? I think ignoring it would be the biggest mistake of your life, Bruce said simply. Backstage, he made a choice no producer would have ever allowed. Johnny took a deep breath. Made a decision. He turned to camera 1, the main camera that broadcast to 17 million Americans, and spoke directly to them. Folks, you just heard something I haven't told anyone. Not my producers. Not my staff. Not even Ed. He glanced at his longtime friend, who was wiping his eyes. I've been having headaches for months. Bad ones. And I've been ignoring them because I convinced myself they were just stress. His voice was steady, but you could hear the fear underneath. Bruce here. He gestured to his guest. Just told me on live television that I need to see a doctor. Tomorrow. And you know what? He's right. The audience started to applaud, softly at first, then building. Not the excited applause of entertainment. Something deeper. The sound of people rooting for someone they loved. Johnny held up his hand, quieting them. I want to do something I've never done before on this show. Bruce, will you stand up for a second? Bruce stood uncertain. Johnny came around from behind his desk, something he rarely did during interviews. He walked to Bruce and extended his hand. Bruce took it. But Johnny didn't just shake his hand. He pulled Bruce into an embrace. The studio erupted. Standing ovation. 17 million people at home watching Johnny Carson hug Bruce Lee on live television, while the king of late night whispered something only Bruce could hear. Later, Bruce would tell friends what Johnny said in that moment. You might have just saved my life. But this was the moment no one in the studio, nor anyone at home, ever saw coming. Johnny released Bruce and turned back to the camera. His eyes were wet, but his voice was clear. I'm going to make an appointment tomorrow morning. And I'm going to tell my doctor exactly what Bruce told me tonight. And I want everyone watching at home who's been ignoring something, some pain, some symptom, some sign their body is trying to give them, I want you to stop ignoring it. Make the appointment. See the doctor. Don't be too proud or too busy to take care of yourself. He paused, collecting himself. Because if Bruce Lee hadn't been my guest tonight, if he hadn't seen what he saw and had the courage to say something on live television, I don't know what would have happened. The audience was crying now. Open, unashamed tears. Ed McMahon had his face in his hands. Doc Severinsen was wiping his eyes with his sleeve. Johnny walked back to his desk. He opened the drawer and pulled out something. A blue cue card, one of the cards he used for jokes and questions during every show. He wrote something on it with his pen, then walked back to Bruce. I want you to have this, Johnny said, handing Bruce the card. It's a promise. Written down. Dated. Witnessed by 17 million people. I promise to see a doctor tomorrow. And I promise to take care of myself. And I'm giving this to you so you can hold me to it. Bruce took the card, read what Johnny had written, and nodded. I will hold you to this. Every word. The show went to commercial. During the break, Johnny made a phone call from backstage. His personal physician. Emergency appointment. 8 a.m. the following morning. The rest of the interview never happened. When they came back from commercial, Johnny sat with Bruce and they just talked. Not about martial arts. Not about movies. About health. About listening to your body. About the courage it takes to admit vulnerability. Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten. The next morning, Johnny Carson sat in a doctor's office while specialists ran tests. CT scan. MRI. Blood work. Hours of examination. The diagnosis, a developing aneurysm in the left carotid artery. Caught early enough to treat. Dangerous enough that waiting another month could have been fatal. Surgery was scheduled for the following week. Minimally invasive. Successful. Johnny was back on The Tonight Show 3 weeks later. On his first show back, his opening monologue was different. He told the audience everything. The diagnosis. The surgery. The recovery. And he held up that blue cue card, the promise he'd made to Bruce Lee. This card saved my life, Johnny said, his voice thick with emotion. Not because of what I wrote on it, but because Bruce Lee cared enough to break every rule and tell me the truth. He paused, looking directly into the camera. Bruce couldn't be here tonight. He's filming in Hong Kong. But I want him to know, wherever he is, that I kept my promise. And I'm here because of him. The audience rose as one. Thunderous applause. Not for entertainment. For life. For courage. For the moment when one human being saved another. Johnny kept that blue cue card in his desk drawer for the rest of his career. When he retired in 1992, he had it framed and sent to Bruce Lee's family with a note. He saw what no one else could see. and he spoke when silence would have been easier. Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten. Today, that cue card hangs in the Bruce Lee Museum in Hong Kong. Below it, a small plaque reads, "The courage to act without warning can save a life." Johnny Carson lived another 33 years after that surgery. Every year on the anniversary, he sent flowers to Bruce Lee's widow with the same message. "Thank you for your husband's eyes. Thank you for his courage."